I never thought I'd see the day when a jade dragon would be beaten by an adorable pink puffball, but little did I realize that at the end of each of her stuffed animals was the weight of a semi-truck. How's it going, YouTube? My name is Quayver, and today I want to talk about the #1 DPS in Wuthering Waves, Encore. Nobody could have thought that Encore would be producing even more DPS than Jian without any signature weapons, without any sequences, but here we are, where she is the #1 DPS on the damage charts. So we're going to go through what she does, how to build her, what weapon to throw on her, what teams to put her on, and what makes her stand out so much among the resonators within the game. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Encore could perform up to 4 basic attacks just hitting, but then after her 4th basic attack, if you press the basic attack button again, it'll do a 5th hit that does kind of like a swirl hit. Her heavy attack is where she goes into a almost unstaggerable mode where she's gripping her head and absolutely losing her mind, but then she drops the giant cosmos down on you. Her mid-air attack is another simple plunging attack. That's where it's going to be used for your parries. And then the basic attack after a dodge counter basically throws the woolies at the enemies and they spiral and it hits down again. It's a very simple basic attack rotation combo. However, because she attacks with woolies, it's very unique to where you could, unlike other ranged characters where it's a bullet that can interact with objects and it'll hit things no matter how far, depending on whether it's in the way of the enemy or not. Her, it's like stuffed animals, the woolies, they'll go beyond objects to attack enemies. That means 2 things. That means that not only can she get around objects that might be perhaps blocking an enemy from taking hits, but also that if an enemy comes in to where you need to hit them to parry them, she's going to have a gap between her cleave and where she herself can take damage. So pairing with her is probably the most difficult out of any of the resonators in the game. However, there is a way to get around it with the plunging attack, and when she's in her resonance liberation, her ult, where a lot of her attacks become a lot closer, it's a lot easier to parry with them as well. Because Encore's basic attack does work this way, there's actually a funny tech that you can do if you're struggling with these goddamn annoying level 90 prisms that is just called the Encore cheese. I showed it off in the Red Mist Echoes video, but here's a quick little snippet for you in case you're struggling with getting this one specifically. It is a slight little tech that you can do with her around walls, underneath areas to where enemies won't be able to reach you. I don't know where else this works in the game, and you probably will only be able to pull it off here. But hey, if you find any other areas where the Encore cheese can work, please let me know down below. Speaking of that, her resonance skill summons both Cloudy and Cosmos to attack with burning rays. Basically, the stuffed animals will start shooting lasers at anything and decimating anything in their way. And then at the end of the string of laser attacks, you can hit the attack button one more time, and then it'll do like a big bomb drop on them. It completely evaporates anything that's even remotely weak to fusion, or at least not resistant to fusion. But even going up against the Inferno Rider, he still takes quite a lot of damage from her. Her basic attacks, even though she floats in the air to do her resonance skill, for some reason you can't jump and use the resonance skill. That's just kind of how it is. It's a 10-second cooldown, and it does quite a lot of damage. Her intro skill, when she comes in, she just pounces on the enemy and she does some damage. And then her forte circuit. This is what has to do with how her heavy attack works. It's called Mayhem. It's her crazy enhanced state where she basically loses her mind and then drops down a giant stuffed animal to absolutely obliterate anything that it lands on. It reduces damage by 70% within this, and when she's in her resonance liberation, her ult mode, instead of dropping down just a single woolly that has a smaller AoE, she will shoot out horns because her resonance liberation, which we're going to get into in a second, basically has one of her stuffed animals take over her, where she does a lot more melee attacks. And the scaling on the forte circuit is obviously higher in resonance liberation, but essentially it works the same way whether you're in your ult state or whether you're not in your ult state. And basically everything that she does will restore mayhem to her, and then when you hold your heavy attack button, she will kind of go into the crazy stasis mode and then drop the giant woolly for a lot of damage. I would not recommend that you hold the skill to drop, or hold the heavy to drop the stuffed animal up until you're ready to switch out there, because one of her most vulnerable states is when she's in that mayhem mode. But if you hold it and enter her mayhem mode and immediately switch out, she becomes invulnerable and she'll still drop the damage, so you mitigate you yourself having to take damage. Lastly is her resonance liberation, where she basically one of the stuffed animals completely takes over her body, and then she goes into sicko mode. Basically, you see this like adorable puffball turn into like sicko mode. She becomes the devil herself and starts to absolutely shred through everything in front of her. Her attacks are enhanced, they're a lot faster, they do a lot of damage, and her skill that was originally a lot of laser beams that took a while turns into this cross slash laser that shoots out immediately, so you can continue hitting into the combos. It is very, very strong, and it allows for a very high DPS ceiling overall. Her scaling is also quite good, and the energy cost isn't too bad. However, you want to hit some energy regen thresholds, about 10 to 20% on average, which can be achieved through either the echoes or the weapon, depending on what you put on her. However, I would recommend that you get it from your echo substats, not even med stat, but echo substats, to hit a small threshold so that you could always have her ult ready and up as soon as you switch into her after your rotation. The first inherent skill that you get is that when her HP is above 70%, she does 7% more damage. And then the second one that you'll get after you hit Resonator rank 4, she gets an additional 10% fusion damage bonus when you use her skill, whether it's inside of her ult mode or not inside of her ult mode. So she basically has 10% and another 10% for 20% more damage bonus. She stacks a huge amount of damage bonuses naturally, and that's also the echoes that you want to put on her. And then her basic outro skill is that she is one of the few characters that doesn't necessarily boost anyone else, but she leaves like an AoE field that does like burning damage. Most of the time, everything's going to be dead by the time you want to switch off of her, unless you're fighting things like hologram bosses, so you won't see this one as much. However, it is still good to keep in mind. Next, I want to talk about weapons, which for Encore is going to be the rectifier. I currently do not have all the rectifiers in the game since I'm staying free to play. However, for this guide, we luckily have Pridewin GG. It even includes the String Matcher, which is going to be Yinlin's signature weapon when she does come out on the banner. So looking through all of this, the best in slot weapon for her in the game currently right now is going to be the only 5-star weapon, which is the Cosmic Ripples. It has the highest flat attack, it has the highest attack percent. The energy regen will help you hit that threshold so you don't have to waste any echo slots on that. And then the basic attack damage bonus is excellent. This rectifier is almost made for her, but it's not necessarily as good as it could be for her because it is an attack percent main stat. Now, immediately after that is going to be the augment. The augment gives 15% extra attack, which is good, but the real important thing about this is the crit rate. Getting the extra crit rate in the weapon is going to help you so much when you're going in to do a lot of damage. Now, these are both gacha weapons, and then I'd say any of the other 4 stars you could throw on that is also good for her. Pretty much all of them will work if you don't mind the skill and you just want the stat bonus. You could basically take anything that has attack percent on it. I would avoid the ones that are energy regen percent main stats. Currently, I'm using the Jinzo Keeper because that's the only one that I have, because that's the only rectifier I was able to pull. However, with the 5-star weapon box that you get at level 45, you could go in and pick Cosmic Ripples if you don't have a good rectifier for her. Even with Yinlin's weapon coming out and having the additional attack percent, and then more of the attack percent, I don't necessarily think that the String Master is going to beat Cosmic Ripples as long as you grind your echoes up properly and you have good substats and good main stats on them. Main stats, of course, are the main thing, but once you get the main stats down, you want to also start looking into getting substats for her. Now, another reason to consider Yinlin's weapon is, first of all, using Yinlin is going to be really fun with Calcharo if you end up pulling a Calcharo, and second is that it has crit rate, so it's going to make your echo farming a lot easier. And even though this weapon doesn't perfectly synergize with Encore, even the additional 12% when she's not on the field is going to be good for her if you use her Mayhem correctly and you hold the heavy attack and immediately swap off of her, because remember, she goes into the invulnerable status effect and then she drops the heavy attack down on them. So you do have some synergy with the weapon there. So if you're someone that maybe needs a different weapon for another character and you are going to be pulling on the banner anyway for Yinlin, I would recommend pulling for the String Master, getting the String Master, and then you use it between Yinlin and also Encore. That's about all that I have for the weapons. Now we're going to move on to the echoes. There's a few ways that you could build Encore. However, the best way is going to be the most obvious way. Put the fusion damage set on the fusion damage character. It's that simple. However, if you're not able to get a good full Molten Rift set for her, you could also consider getting things that are within the set of lingering tunes, running the 2 and 2 so that you get the attack percent and the fusion damage bonus. However, if you could grind out to get the full fusion damage bonus set in the Molten Rift, that's going to be your best bet. Now, the Inferno Rider is going to be the one that you want to put on in your main area to turn into. It's not only great for getting the attack, it's not only great for what they their battle skills, but also for traversing the map, since if you use the echo skill and you hold down the echo skill, Inferno Rider will not only spawn, but he'll also pull out his motorcycle and you could drive him around. It is pretty cool. What you're looking for stats here is on your Inferno Rider, you want either crit rate or crit damage. Crit rate is, in my opinion, harder to come by than crit damage. For some reason, crit damage just seems like it's rolling more than crit rate. So I would recommend picking up a crit rate piece on the Inferno Rider in the gold tier. If you have the purple one, you could just do the purple one. But if you also want to run something that is crit damage, you could also run the crit damage here for the main Inferno Rider. But I would recommend crit rate or crit damage 100% of the time. After that, you're going to want to think about your 3 costs. You want 3 cost echoes that not only are on the Molten Rift set or the attack percent set, but also that have the fusion damage bonus main stat. Now, not only just for one of your 3 costs, but for both your 3 costs, you want fusion damage bonus set so that you're getting a total of 60% extra fusion damage bonus before your set effect even comes in. Because what Encore wants is she wants to hit as many times as possible in her burst window before and after her ult, doing as much damage as physically possible the time that she is on the field. And then after that, your 2 1 costs that you want to look for are both attack percentages. Now, the important substats to look for in your echoes is first going to be crit damage and crit rate, because those are the 2 most important aspects of her being able to hit more damage, since you're already getting a lot of damage percent and attack percent from the main stats of your 3 costs and your 1 costs. After that is going to be basic attack damage bonus. Some will argue you want more attack percent, you want to focus attack percent here. It's completely random. Basic attack damage bonus is going to be very good for her, since most of her kit is all basic attacking. If you get heavy attack damage bonus, I wouldn't worry about it too much. It'll help during her mayhem, which is still pretty good. It's a pretty heavy thing, especially if you have the weapon for Yinlin once that one comes out. After those 3 stats, you want to look for attack percent and then also flat attack. And before all of those stats together, you want to get enough energy regen to hit up the threshold of about 10 to 20%. That's your goal. That's what you want to aim for the echoes. You want to as much of the attack, crit rate, crit damage, a little bit of energy regen, a little bit, and then you want basic attack and basic attack damage bonus, and then flat attack. If you get things like resonant skill damage, it's also not bad. Resonance liberation is absolutely useless on her. I would not particularly want to get that stat ever. And then heavy attack bonus, yeah, heavy attack bonus is okay. Currently, I have been grinding her out a little bit. I'm at 36.9 over 184. However, the main threshold that you want to aim for is 50 to 200. For some reason in this game, crit damage starts at 150 instead of 50. So when you get 50 to 200, that's actually more realistically like 50 to 100. That's your 2 to 1 ratio, even though it doesn't look like it. So that's the main stats you want to look for. And then on top of the 50% to the 200%, you want as much basic attack damage bonus, attack percent, and the fusion damage bonus as possible. You see, with both the main stats and the set, I don't have one fully upgraded yet, but you're going to be hitting around 70% fusion damage bonus, and then you get the extra 10% and 10% from both of the Forte Circuit upgrades. So she has a lot of bonus damage in there. So those are the main things you want to look for echoes. So now we're going to go and move on to team building. Now, team building for Encore is very simple. You want her to have as much buffs, as much damage as she possibly can, which synergizes perfectly with Sanhua. And luckily for everyone that plays this game, you and me included, in the gifts that we get, you get a Sanhua for free on day 5. That is one of the main reasons Encore is probably the best pick that you can get from your 5-star selector, just in general, because she does the most damage in the game. You get her best support for free without having to do any pulls, any risks. So the only thing you have to do after that is get a support, and you have a full maxed out Encore team. Now, these 2 are interchangeable. Encore and Sanhua, you need them together on the team. I would highly recommend you pair them together. And because you get her for free, I won't really mention any substitutes here. I'd say that if you really needed sanhua on another team, you could run Yanwu, you can run more Tefi. However, there is no good replacement that is nearly as good as sanhua for Encore, and it's not even close. Now, when it comes to the third slot, you want Verena, you want Baiji. I personally like jianxin. She's highly underrated, and I think she does an amazing team synergy, but we'll talk about that at the end since it's my personal bias. But Baiji is going to be like the best free-to-play option that you have. If you have your 5-star selector still around, or you haven't reached that 80 pity for the 5-star banner, hopefully you can get Verena, and because she's going to be the one that is going to really tie this team together in a meta aspect for you because of her own healing and attack percent bonuses, what she can give to sanhua, and then into Encore afterwards. I like jianxin the most for this team because jianxin has pretty good synergy with sanhua, because her outro skill is that she gives the 38% damage deepen bonus to a resonance liberation, and sanhua is one of the few characters in the game to where she does a single burst of the resonance liberation, just like Havoc MC. Havoc MC and jianxin are really good together, and sanhua and jianxin as the sustainer and shielder for the team that also will do damage if you build her with damage, but if you build her full support, she'll do your healing and shielding that's needed. Then she'll also give a huge attack, the huge bonus damage to sanhua's ult. And it is just, this team has just really good synergy. It feels good to have each of them out on the field. Their rotation is clean. If you're looking for a team that is underrated to work with Encore and sanhua, I would highly recommend jianxin. However, if you want to stay with meta and you want to follow what every single other sheep wants to do, then you can go with Verena or you can go with Baiji, and you will do just fine. I would argue that Encore, sanhua, and jianxin is her #1 team. However, I will get a lot of disagreements, and it will be Encore, sanhua, and then Verena. So keep that in mind as we're going forward. Now, for all the whales or the dedicated Encore mains out there that want to consider, should I go for sequences on Encore, we're going to go over it. I personally don't think that you need any sequences on any characters to make them as good as they potentially can be, because once you whale out on this game, it loses all value and fun. But if you find fun in that, go absolutely crazy with it. So first, we're going to talk about her first sequence, which is when her basic attack hits a target, her fusion bonus is increased by 3%, stacking up to 4 times. So this will give you an extra 12% of fusion damage bonus on top of everything. However, keep in mind that you're already going to be hitting around 70% fusion damage bonuses once you have her echoes built up correctly. So an extra 12% is not really worth the amount of pulls that you're going to have to put into her, my personal opinion. Her second one is going to be that she restores 10 additional resonance energy when casting the basic attack or resonance skill. It can be triggered every 10 seconds. This is going to help keep her ultimate uptime as good as possible if she is your solo damage dealer. However, if you are doing your rotations properly, this one's also not as crazy as it sounds. Now, having the heavy attack have an increased 40% damage multiplier is quite good, but you get the one pop and the one burst most of the time. You're not going to be holding heavy attack that long on her, because it's what you want to do when you want to swap out. Her fourth is that her heavy attack increases the fusion bonus of all team members by 20%. Now, this could potentially be a very good sequence later on once you are able to build full teams of a single resonance type. But as of how the game stands right now, I don't potentially foresee a full team comp of fusion damage bonus for all team members. So perhaps in the future, when she's power crept by another fusion damage dealer, if you have this one, then this is going to be able to buff up the next in line fusion damage dealer that is going to be coming after Encore. The fifth is that her resonance skill bonus damage is 35% more, decent. And then her sequence 6 is that during her resonance liberation, she gains a stack of lost lamb every time she deals damage, increasing her attack by 5% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times 25%. So as you can see, at pretty much every single one of her sequences, except for sequence 4, is just, I will increase my number. I'm not going to add any extra gameplay to it. I'm not going to add any extra fun mechanics to it. I just make number bigger. And is that worth $2,000 to you? Just keep that in mind and think about that before you go crazy with it. I don't think anyone needs sequences. This game is perfectly beatable and perfectly fun without it. But hey, you do you, king or queen. You're absolutely perfect the way that you are. Encore was the most surprising out of all the units that I thought could possibly hit the top DPS charts for the game. It makes me incredibly happy since I wanted to play Encore since the moment that she was first revealed to me. I immediately picked her up the moment that we got that 5-star selector. And if you are an Encore main, especially because of the free sanhua, you are eating good for a while. But that will take us to the end of this video. If you did like it, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell down below. Let me know what character you'd like to see a video going over next, my own opinions, my own thoughts on them going over their skills, their build, everything that you should be looking out for. Once more, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.